Well, hey everybody, welcome to Get to Know Your Wedding Pro. My name is Reed with Best Made Videos. We are a wedding videography company based out of West Seattle, Washington. And I'm so excited today to be joined again by video in our continuing video series now that Amy and Bronwyn started last week on the podcast. We have Mason Joel, who is one of my friends in a bunch of online groups. He has his own podcast that we are going to record later today, Getting Candid, right? A photography focused, long form interviews. Actually, a lot of familiar guests that have been on this podcast, which I think is awesome. I was looking through the list and he said, hey, I would love to come on. You can come on. We'll kind of do a switcheroo kind of thing. So thank you so much for coming on. I love meeting new people, especially people that we've all just been talking online repeatedly lately. So it's so great to kind of see you face to face. So why don't you introduce yourself and tell us who you are and what you do?
Sure thing. Thanks for having me on again, by the way. I appreciate it. It's always like hey, I don't want to bother you. I'm kind of a nobody, but can I come on the podcast and will you come on my podcast and it'll be great. We'll be friends. Yeah, thanks for that introduction. My name is Mason Joel. I'm a photographer based out of Kitsap technically, but I say Kitsap and Seattle. I do. I promote weddings and portraits, but I mean, I think with any photographer, we all kind of do a little bit of everything. I listen to the Mike Tobolowsky. Is that how it's say? Mike Tobolowsky?
Mike Tobolowsky. I said it wrong. I said it wrong for years, and he's one of my good friends. Mike Tobolowsky. Yes.
Mike Tobolowsky. So I listened to Mike Tobolowsky's episode, and I was like, yeah, absolutely, because he's talking about, I've done commercial, I do event, blah, 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 blah. I think pretty much every photographer is sort of in the same boat. It's like we kind of can do anything that you need, but we have to, it's the crux of the industry, kind of have to focus in and hone one thing and push that out. So kind of a jack of all trades because I am also so new. So it's like real estate, whatever, like whoever's going to pay me money at this point, but working on building weddings and portraits, that's sort of my niche. That's the thing I want to get into. So I've been working on it. In my spare time, I do the podcast. It's called Getting Candid. It's to help new photo and video and vendor entrepreneurs figure out how to navigate the wedding space. And just build a business in general, to be honest, because I think a lot of things sort of they just easily flow into whatever thing you're trying to build because it's pretty universal advice, I would say, no matter what. So yeah, that's me, man.
So how'd you get involved in photography in the first place? I always, some people grew up with like a camera in their hands, or did you study in school, or how did you get involved?
I think my story is not super unique. I think a lot of people kind of have that. Well, I did it in high school and I got the bug. I've heard it a lot. We've all heard it. If you listen to my podcast in any chance, it's sort of the same thing. So started in high school. I had a digital photography teacher who is no longer with us. Her name was Miss Nielsen. She's awesome. Miss you, Miss Nielsen. I took her digital photography class and I was editing a photo and it was black and white because I have like this thing about I love black and whites. And she came over and she looked and she's like, "You're not half bad, Mason. You should, I mean, it's not great, but you should think about doing this." And I was like, nah, dude, I want to make money. So I kind of lost touch with it, went to college at the UW. I wanted to be a computer scientist because I wanted to make money. And I took a quarter of computer science classes, realized I hated it, didn't want to learn how to code. It's awful. Totally switched gears, just took classes that I wanted. Cut to senior year, took a photography class, actually my last quarter of school. And I had sort of had a camera, but I didn't use it. And then I took that class and I went, why am I not doing this? Like, this is what I love to do. Like, I miss this so much. And then I got a job working at a photography studio and just recently got a business. And that's sort of the quick and dirty synopsis of how I got into photography and how that came to be what I am today.
What year did you graduate from school?
High school or college?
College.
College, I graduated in 2017.
Wow. Yeah. So it does seem, so were you, because generally it seems like the entrepreneurship, people a little bit younger than I am, it's a little bit more easy to jump into, not as much fear. Were you scared of kind of going at it yourself? I know a lot of the guys that I hire and stuff are a little more like willy-nilly, like, hey, let's make it go with this.
Yeah. I think I'm the type of person, I'm very cautious and I don't ever want to make a miscalculated error and do something without knowing what I'm getting into. But with this, I kind of sat on it for a long time. to be honest with you. I was like, I'm pretty comfortable where I'm at. I like my job. I like being able to do photography and also know that I have a paycheck coming in, because as any freelancer knows, sometimes it gets dodgy, especially during COVID. Um, but I technically got my business license in August of 2019, and I didn't even do anything. I just got it, so I had it. But that was for me sort of the Mason. If you want to make this happen for yourself, you have to do it. Like, you have to learn everything about it, and it's time to just, put your big boy pants on, take the life vest off, go jump in the water, and figure out how to swim. So, yeah, I would say I'm a very cautious person, but with this, it's like, I know that this is what I want to do, and I know I want to make this happen. So, as long as I'm dedicated, it'll work out for me. That's sort of my positive mindset that I have going into it.
What was the scariest thing, or maybe that you didn't anticipate, and that you thought you knew, and you're like, oh wow, like
Yeah. The thing that everyone always says to the new guy is, you have no idea how hard all of the back end is. You have no idea how much shit you have to crap.
that's
Sorry.
okay.
How much crap you have to do on the back end. And I was like, yeah, no, I hear you. Like, it's fine. Like, it can't be that. Like, you're like, yeah, I know it's bad, but it can't be that bad. And very ignorantly, I tried without like a CRM or anything, and it was a nightmare, absolute nightmare. And so I learned very quickly that they don't lie to you when they say 10% of what you do is what you love, and then 90% is all the other crap that comes along with running your business. And so that's kind of been the hardest thing for me. So taxes, understanding invoicing, and properly rectifying your income and your business expenses and all that. Like, it's so much work. So that's been the thing I've struggled with lately, is just learning how to make all of that happen and understanding everything that goes along with having your own business.
Well, yeah, I was the one that the first time I had like my quarterly taxes or whatever, I called. I had to go on the West Seattle. We're in West Seattle, in the West Seattle Chamber of Commerce, and like looked for an accountant. And I like called him, and I was like sobbing, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know how to, like my numbers.
Please help me.
Yeah, so I definitely understand. And especially right now, like that's the one thing I think, dealing with the back end, and I don't think people necessarily, with the reschedules and everything, because it's like, here we are, you're moving dates and you're moving balances and you're giving refunds and you're not giving refunds. And you're like, I had a Zoom call the other day with one of our September brides, and I'm like, you kind of got to catch me up here on like where we're at, and I feel terrible saying that. Right. But it's just so much, it's so hard to keep track right now with everything going on.
It's insane. It's both the best and the worst time to try and like make a business happen, because nothing's basically happening this year. Everything that I have is honestly just networked friend stuff. And anything that I was going to have this year is like not happening, or maybe 2021. And I actually had a couple break up during quarantine. So I was like, I guess I'll just give you all that money back. So it's a good thing and it's a bad thing. It's a good learning lesson, I would say, because I think for a lot of us in this space that we're in right now, we have to pivot. This is a good learning lesson of like, okay, the market is not focused on what I do, so how can I make that happen? And I feel like that's obviously from doing big weddings to pivoting to elopements, because that's basically what we're doing right now. We can't have a reception, 30 people maximum, unless you're the church thing like you and I saw on that post. So it's good to see that, I think, because it makes you realize that you have to be able to adapt,
Well, I think, yeah. And I think people are going to definitely be a little more lean. I mean, I think a lot of vendors, a lot of higher end photographers. I mean, I know even, we were spending money on stuff, and like the second March hit, and you're like, oh, okay, we're not, we're canceling every, program subscription to, or like, like all the people are looking through, hey, so if you cancel Adobe, but then resubscribe, they'll give you 50, like all these different things, trying to figure out, because I think people were just living, oh yeah, we can pay for that, and we're on, this and that and all this stuff. And so, yeah, I definitely think though that the people now that survive are going to be super lean, when it comes to what they have to, what they actually need to do. So
and you bring that point up, which is really good. Like, you have to take a stock of what you're paying for, and is it really valuable, and is it really worth it? Like, what can you cut your losses for And you're like, you know what? I actually didn't even need that. So now you're even saving money when we come out through this and we start having more work, hopefully in 2021. And like you said, you run a little leaner, which is great, which is absolutely fantastic.
So you said jack of all trades, you do a bunch of stuff. Your ideal client, wedding, whatever, what is your ideal jam? What do you really enjoy doing the most?
The question that everyone asks themselves at the beginning, that the ideal client. I am a weird dude, like just by and large, and I'm unapologetically who I am. And that's something that a lot of people have to work on when they start, that's sort of not answering the question, but you get the point. I vibe well with people who are a little strange, who are a little out there. They're happy with who they're at, with who they are with, obviously, like anyone. But they like video games. Probably they're big nerds. They like art. They might be tech guys, which means they probably love video games. Like, I definitely think I vibe well with people who are sort of in my age range, which I am 25 at this point. And it's almost hipster. I don't know. It's still something that I'm sort of narrowing, and it's always something that you have to learn and then adapt as you get older, because everyone changes. So right now I'm trying to hit that 22 to like 30 range. Like, those are the types of people I generally get along with the best. So
Yeah, it's so because we've talked about that with other vendors too, that generally the age of marriage stays relatively the same, right? Kind of early. And obviously, I mean, my wife and I got married a little bit later, but generally speaking, and then vendors continue to get older, right? So there is always this like, well, how does a 55-year-old photographer hang out with a bunch of not your teen, but whatever, getting ready.
Teens to them, basically.
Yeah. And it is interesting. So yeah, I definitely think that, being in that age range, because I'm definitely at the point now where, like the couple that we did last Sunday, I'm like, they're like children. I mean, like, and I'm not that old, but I do feel like, wow, this is okay. This is definitely like a different crowd now,
Is it different to talk to them now versus maybe when you started?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I do feel like a vendor there, kind of helping versus like, hey, Reed.
You're like, you're so young, bright-tailed, bushy-eyed, or bushy-tailed, bright-eyed.
Yeah. Well, and definitely, some of them now where they have, we have some young couples that have like 1, 2, 3 kids, and I'm like, whoa, man, like we're, you got like, so you're just like steamrolling past us, and it's a whole thing. So, did you grow up in the area?
I did. So I've grown up in the Kitsap area my whole life. I moved, but even still, it was in Kitsap. So I've lived on my side of the water forever, which is a blessing and a curse. It's good because you're not stuck in the Seattle traffic, the Seattle stuff. Like, I don't have to deal with that. But also being who I am and doing what I do, I love people. Like, I love socializing. I'm totally an extrovert. I thought I was like an introverted extrovert. It's not true. I'm just an extrovert. I'm just an extrovert who sometimes needs to take a break. So this quarantine has been so hard because I can't go see my friends. And if I want to go see my friends, it's like I got to go either all the way around, or I have to chance a ferry, which the ferry system is a joke right now. Understandably so, but it's still frustrating. So and I can't get stuff if I need to get equipment, because Glaciers is sort of the spot. I have to maybe get lucky and ride a ferry to rent something if I need it, and then come back. And it's just, it's a hassle.
But it's a beautiful area. Do you like it over there?
Oh God, absolutely beautiful. I mean, it's sort of, if you're not going to the North Cascades, it's sort of the elopement area, because it's the only other place that has those scenes that you want. That is just a bridge away, which I'll deal with the Hood Canal Bridge over the ferry system any day of the week,
What's it been like kind of, getting involved in this community, networking, obviously being a part of the groups, doing the podcast? Is that all, obviously building this web? I mean, is that all, what's the thought process behind that and the intentionality behind that?
Oh, sure. So I think a lot of people at the beginning are super intimidated to even reach out, like even still like reaching out to you is intimidating, even because I haven't talked to you before. I'm sort of just a lurker on the nut page. I don't say anything very often because I think I think a lot of people do this too. You kind of devalue yourself. You're like, oh, I haven't been here long enough. Like, I don't know what I'm talking about. But I don't think that's necessarily true. And I've been trying to be better about that. Like, hey, from what I've learned, from who I've talked to, this is what I think. And that's also a good way to build some trust with people as well. They're like, okay, I've seen this guy post on Facebook and stuff. Like, he seems like he's a cool dude. And the getting candid thing came from pure frustration of trying to figure out what the heck I need to do. Like, there's not a lot of resources available to you that give you actionables. There's a lot of stuff out there that's fluff. That's like, they'll try and like guide you to their website, and then they want you to pay upwards of $1,000 so they can tell you one thing, and you're like, I could have just found that on the internet probably. And that's not to say you shouldn't monetize your education and your value. You totally should. But also, why not make something that's a resource to people that helps them get some actionables to start working their mind so that they see themselves as a business person and start taking that stuff seriously and sort of know what they need to do. And then also, you're absolutely right. I'm networking. I'm building trust. I'm building a friendship with people. I'm building a friendship with you and Jordan Voth and Chelsea Abril and Tony Christine and all these people who I see up here above me because I'm the new guy. And then you talk to all these people and like, dude, we're just people. Like, it's cool. Like, just, you can say hi. It's cool. You can ask for advice if you need it. Like, which has been awesome. It's been awesome to be able to rely on people, to text people like, hey, like, I'm dealing with this situation. What do I do? I just had that happen the other day with Meg Prouse. She lives in my area. And I was like, hey, like, I just had this thing happen. Can I send you this email and get your opinion? She's like, yeah, absolutely. Like, no problem. And I would never have done that like 6 months ago. Absolutely not.
No, but I think that's great advice. I mean, and I think especially now, with everyone, everyone's online and all that. But I mean, I think people pay attention to who is, adding to dialogue, adding to discussion, adding to things versus, just posting, we're available, I'm available, trying to get work, right? Trying to get work. And
God.
But it is. And, because I've gotten to the point now too, where, and I deal with, my own side with video stuff. And I'm like, I at least feel like I'm trying to, and, with your podcast and things, trying to add value, trying to add, resources, trying to add, like, helping people online through unemployment stuff and like everyone, but we're all, and so I think that's a great mentality to have. And, just trying to start those dialogues versus, the people that are just on there to get work. Cause I do think it's pretty transparent, especially nowadays where it's all online and like everything. And you're like, man, I don't know this guy at all, except he always seems to be wanting to work and doesn't really talk about anything else, So I think that's a good mindset to have.
And I don't even think about that perception because I am super guilty of being the guy to post, like whenever anyone needs anything. Even Mike posted something the other day and he's like, sorry, I'm the female. And I was like, no, but you're so hungry, especially when you're new. So you're so hungry to prove yourself. And I am super hungry to prove that I have the talent. So whenever anyone posts anything, and I've yet to get a job from either the Second Shooter page or the North Sound page or the Nut page for a second gig. And it doesn't make me mad. It just makes me want to try harder. And that's sort of, it's going off on a tangent a little bit, but you're absolutely right. And I didn't even think about that. Like, you should be starting dialogue too. And that's sort of why I'm trying to not only just be like, hey, I'm available. I'm great. Like, I'm the hottest thing since sliced bread. You should totally hire me. But also like, hey, like, that's great work or whatever, just being a genuine human is big. People are like, okay, he's cool. Like, he's not just a jerk trying to do what he needs to and get out of here.
Oh yeah, no. And I mean, and that's the thing too, that we, I'm trying to do this surprise thing for Dorothy, and it was going to involve a photographer, and she's never going to listen to this, so it doesn't really matter. But, but I talked to the photographer, and that was based on a personal relationship. Like, I don't care about like portfolios and rates, and like I was like, it doesn't even matter to me. Like, I just, I want to hire you because it's you and not really anything else. And I think, that goes, at least for people with referrals and things like that. I don't think that, yeah, it's about who you know and not really even what you do. I mean, everyone's proficient enough with taking photos,
Oh
right?
yeah.
It's about, standing out on those other things. Cause like I've always said, I'm not an exceptional videographer, but I am good at, trying to build connections and things like that. So,
100%. Yeah.
so
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
talk about your photography style. I know we talked about clients and stuff, but you said you really like black and white. I mean, I mean, I know everyone's kind of got, it's like the bright and airy nowadays or the dark and moody. I mean,
Yeah.
where do you try to
Oh,
fit in?
I gotta be honest. I hate the word bright and airy because I feel like it's so overused. But it is a style, and there's no knocking that it works for people. My style is very contrasty. I would say not like super heavy contrasty, but uh, definitely contrast. I definitely don't try to limit myself in a lighting scenario. Like I can make whatever work, just like anyone else. Um, but sort of more natural colors. I don't like to go too yellow or too blue. Try to stick sort of true to the color temperature, which that might go over some people's head. And beyond that, I love very intimate moments. I find this is both a strength and a flaw, I think, at the same time. I really gravitate towards moments where it's very close and intimate, and I'm tight on the shot, and it's like the people are holding, it's like head to head, or they're almost about to kiss, or things like that. And then that's hard because I'm not getting all the shots that I need. Oh my god, I'm human. I know. So it's like, okay, I need to stop just shooting tight. I need to get full body. But then on the other end of the spectrum, if you look on my website, like my first photo is a couple doing the finger guns to each other, which was a joke between the two of them, and I was like, that's hilarious. You have to do that, and I basically forced them to, and it's their favorite picture ever. And they're like, "Oh my god, thank you so much for making us do that." And I was like, "You're welcome. I knew you'd love it." And I also gravitate to those moments where people are just being silly and just being themselves and not worried that the camera is going to catch them being, not picture perfect, like, because no one's picture perfect. So those two kind of contrast. So my catch line is emphasis on the sappy and the silly, because those are the two things that I love to see from two people.
Yeah, it's so hard. I mean, even as a video, but as a photographer trying to stand out, I can't even like wrap my head around trying to have like a photography company and
Oh,
stand out. I mean, how do you approach that? Like what is your to try to, get clients stand out, from a marketing and visual, besides just obviously the connection stuff, that between, referrals and things like that.
yeah, that's sort of the newest thing I think right now that's so hard for new people to do, and this is something that I've talked to other people about. The market is way big, especially where we live. There's so many people who have a camera and are a photographer, and there are people who are genuine photographers. But you know what I mean. There's people who maybe don't have any business being a photographer, and they're just starting, and that's totally fine. But there's so many options. There's so many different people compared to even 2010, where the way to get people in the door was completely different. And so, from what I've learned, um, Instagram is not the thing anymore. Like too many people are on it. Doesn't matter. It's not chronological anymore. It only posts or shows your stuff if you get a lot of comments and there's a lot of interaction and shares on it. So what I've been doing is kind of finding that next thing that people can use. And some people think it's TikTok. I don't necessarily agree. I think the market for TikTok is completely different from the market that I need. So what I'm finding actually a lot of success in is Facebook ads, because Facebook can actually also go to Instagram. So and along with Facebook ads, it's SEO, learning how to use SEO and blogging and all of that stuff, which I think has already always been there, but a lot of people skip because it is a lot of work. So for me, I'm focusing on making sure my SEO is really tight. I could be better on my website. That's sort of what I've been doing this week. And then learning how to make Facebook ads happen and understanding how to make it work for you, even though it's not really made for us. It's made for product, like t-shirts and stuff. So that's sort of been my approach beyond obviously networking with people.
Yeah, I actually had a wedding. It hasn't been posted yet, but Wedding Network Seattle is a really great. If you're ever interested in joining, these more large scale networking groups, and they were trying to get people to write blogs for them, and I did a whole blog about blogging, which I was really proud about because I
Mm,
feel like at this point, like I've gone to the Wedding MBA down in Vegas. This year it's going to be
yeah.
digital only, just because obviously. But I feel like at this point, I could give a very passionate hour-long seminar about blogging. Is
Yeah.
how much I feel about it. Is that something that you work on too? That you do find success in like doing?
When I actually do it, absolutely, absolutely, Uh, and I've been so bad about it. And my good friend Sarah Ann, who's been on the podcast and has shared a lot of knowledge with me, is like, she knows her SEO really well, and she's been like, dude, if you're not blogging, like, you're kind of doing yourself a disservice. And learning all the things that you have to do while blogging has been interesting too. Outbound links, inbound links, crediting, and format, and your grammar. And I'm like, wow, there is so much that you have to do and think about that I mean, before, when I was blogging on my old website, it was just, here's these two people in love, blah, blah, blah. Please enjoy my photos. And compared to what I do now, where it's like, okay, very specific. I have to link these dresses and all this other stuff. I'm like, wow, this is so much work. But it turns out great because I can see where it goes, and I can see all the people that see it. And I'm like, okay, this is something that I need to be more consistent about. But also that means you have to get more work. And if you have to shoot for free, you have to shoot for free or do style shoots or whatever, whatever gets you work. So yeah, absolutely. SEO is undervalued, I think, right now, but it's gaining more traction from what I see.
Yeah, there's I can't remember his last name. The guy that does at the Wedding MBA, he goes, it's Jason something, and he does. I would go to Vegas just to see him talk, and he does these hour-long talks about like SEO stuff, and it is the most I mean, as someone that's a nerd about it, is the most fascinating stuff that I've ever that you ever. And I'm sitting
Yeah.
there like, and everyone else is like, what the hell is he talking about? And I'm there with like all my notes, like taking them out anyway. But yeah, it's definitely something. I mean, do you struggle with that? I think everyone does. The balancing, I know we talked about the work stuff and the the back end. Is that hard for you to balance that? I mean, it's really easy to be a creative and not know how to do business, or know how to do business and not be creative. Is it hard? How do you balance those two, brain sides?
I mean, to be honest with you, I'm still working on it, being so young and so fresh, both, I guess, both literally and figuratively in being a business person. I think a lot of people come in with this misconception of, I'm a bleeding artist and I'm going to post my work on my website and people are just going to come and find me because that's how it works, because I know that my stuff is good. And I wasn't quite that egotistical or overconfident, but I definitely had this mindset of, if I just put my stuff out there, it'll work. And it does not work that way at all. So there's a little bit of understanding, and I think Dan talked about this he made a comment in one of our groups. Um, uh, and to me, it's a little unfortunate because it kind of sucks, but it's also just absolutely true, where you are a business person first and then you are an artist. And if you don't come into this with that understanding, you're not going to do well. Uh, Unless your work is like the most amazing thing ever, which like 99% of you listening is probably, if there are any of you listening, is probably not. Like, let's just be honest. So you have to learn, and I'm still, like I said, I'm still doing it. You have to learn your time management, and not only time management, but time allocation. So what am I doing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday versus what am I doing Thursday, Friday, Saturday, so that I am doing everything I can for my business? So is that reconciliation? Is that making blogs all day? Is that setting up your brochures and price lists and all that other stuff? And for me, Honeybook, that's what I use. So that's what I've been doing this week. Um, and knowing and being able to identify what you have to work on. It's insane to me that, like I said earlier, still trying to learn and understand everything that I have to do. It's a lot of work. So if you're not here for that, you're not going to make it, to be honest.
Yeah, and that's the thing now with COVID and everything else is I think it was really easy for a lot of people to get into weddings because
Hmm.
it's a lot of money and they think it's you're going to get these dumb brides or whatever that are going to spend money on all this stuff, and I think that it's not, and it is really competitive, and it is really I think it's really going to show the people that are really in it for the long run and not,
Oh yeah.
because there's a lot of other ways to make money right now with weddings not happening.
Oh,
So
absolutely. And there is that delusion of grandeur where like I'm going to start and I'm just going to make $3,000 every wedding. And let me tell you, that's not true, like at all, because I'm the guy who's like, if you have someone who doesn't have a big budget, please send them to me because I'm their guy because I just need the work. So if you think that you're just going to start off and make $60,000 in a year, it's not going to happen. That's not how it works at all. You're begging at some points, to be honest, like please, like even just let me second shoot or whatever. Like I just need the work. And there's a lot of stuff that goes in that, which I've talked about before. I won't go into, but it's an uphill battle. Like no matter what any business is when you start it.
what's your favorite part of the wedding day and being a part of that?
Ooh, you know what? As weird as it is to say, I really love getting the detailed shots of the venue, and I really love doing the ring shots. Mostly because that moment in time, and it's usually before anything is going on, that's the calm before the storm that comes. And I enjoy the storm, don't get me wrong. But being able to control where I go, how I want the rings to be, I can just take pictures of the flowers and get all those detailed stuff for maybe vendors or, if it's the ring, I'm getting it for the bride. It's really nice to just to have that moment to really start your creative mind going and like, okay, I got to think about lighting and where I want to be and all that. So it's a good jump start for me, and it's also nice to have that moment of just calmness before all that fun crazy happens, and it's just like, all right, let's do this portrait, scramble, get over here, all that stuff.
Uh, being out on the peninsula, do you find that you're working a lot of places out there? Do you like the venues out there, or do you venture into Seattle a
There's
lot?
to be honest with you, I haven't gotten to venture to Seattle yet. So but actually, it's not in Seattle, but I actually just got a wedding on the San Juans at Roche Harbor or Roche Island. No, Roche Harbor.
Rush Harbor,
So
yeah,
that resort,
yeah.
and I'm so psyched for that because that to me is sort of like very gratifying. It's like, okay, like I am legit. Someone saw my work and was like, we want you to come. We trust you. Come out to Roche Harbor for this sick wedding. And I'm like, oh, yes. I'm like, okay, this is sort of my turning point. I'm doing everything that I need to do. So it's like, keep pushing that snowball, basically. You got this. But I haven't gotten to do anything in Seattle yet. I want to. And I've been honestly kind of bothering people like, hey, don't pay me. Just let me come and like hold your water bottle because I want to start looking at these venues and seeing them and kind of watch you work. And I understand why people sometimes don't want to or don't need you, and that's fine. But the wedding venues here, it's very limited. I find unless you're doing like an outdoor space. There's the Red Cedar Farm. There's the Kingston House, which is beautiful. I love the Kingston House. I love the people that run it too, with all the lavender and stuff. I don't know if you've been there before.
No, I've been to Red Cedar. I haven't been to Kingston House.
Oh, it's beautiful. But Red Cedar Farm is great too. I love that look and that vibe. And there's more that for some reason, I can't remember. But I've been to pretty much all of them in this area. I'm still trying to get that Seattle stuff, man. It'll come. It'll come as I work. But yeah, I love the venues here. It's very calm usually too. So that's always nice.
Uh, just in terms of running the photography business, what is a lesson you've learned, some advice that you have, that you would give to someone else, that's similar to you or starting out that is trying to figure out what to do? And I know that that's like super loaded.
That is a super loaded question. Listen to my podcast. It's called Getting Candid. No, just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding. My biggest advice to someone, and I think Tony Christina said this, and Chelsea Abril has said this on my podcast, is you need to learn your back end before you even shoot a picture for money. Because if you don't take care of your financials and you don't understand all the legal things that you have to do, you're really setting yourself up for failure. For a fun anecdote that I'll share too that I had happen to me recently. I wasn't keeping up with any of my bookkeeping because I do it myself because I don't make enough money to have an accountant yet. I let it go for 6 months. I didn't look at it, and that's including 2019. Um, and tax season rolls around, and I have to pay money. I go back to look at all of my reconciliation, realize that I haven't done any of it, realize that I'm missing things, and so I got to spend. Luckily, I had enough time. I got to spend basically 3 weeks going over it, and I actually had to restart twice so that I knew that I had everything correct. Um, and that all could have been avoided if I just set like a Monday, even like once a month, to just go through and be like, all right, here's where everything goes. Easy. Now I know what my expenses are. So those are the sorts of things that you overlook if you don't realize what you have to do.
Where does it seems like you said you're passionate about learning, about growing. Where does that excitement come from? Is that just and even the entrepreneurship and to branch out on your own? I mean, where does all that come from?
Mm, that's a good question. That's like a very introspective question, even.
We try.
I think that I think the drive just comes from I love I love learning and mastering something, and I love knowing that as cocky as it sounds, I love knowing that I'm good at something, and I love knowing that I'm so good at something that someone else wants to praise me for because I live for it. I'm an actor at heart too, so getting that praise and knowing that I'm making it and knowing that I'm doing the right things and I'm navigating this space that is so vast and knowing like okay, I found sort of my path. I found the thing that's going to launch me to where I want to be is really fulfilling. And also just hanging out with cool people is awesome too. You get to meet a lot of really fun people, both vendor wise and couples wise. Even just sitting here talking to you, I'm like, this guy's awesome. You have to be a podcast guy, so you know how to be personable, but there's so many. It's just cool to be a part of this and call myself a business person and be like, okay, like I'm not perfect yet, but I know that I'm getting better, and I know that these people are like, hey, like good job, man, like keep doing you, and that's I live for it, to be honest. So that validation of acceptance and the validation of knowing that I'm doing something that people love is great.
You said you're an actor at heart. Talk to me about that. Did you act back in school or growing up?
So fun story about that, actually. I'll make it quick.
That's okay.
I grew up playing sports my whole life. My dad was a sports guy, still is to this day. Loves XFL. He was like, yes, Seattle Dragons. Loves NFL, loves baseball. That's like his stuff. So he had me play it for reasons I won't go into. Pretty much all my life. I was good, but I wasn't great, and I wasn't getting the praise and the acceptance that I wanted there. So senior year in high school, I get dared to do a show. My friend's like, you should come out and try out for the Wizard of Oz. I bet you won't get a role. And I was like, bet, dude, because I wasn't doing wrestling at that time. I went out, did it. I did a stupid voice, and I got the role of the Cowardly Lion. And I was like, what? No. That was just a joke. Like, no, for real? And she's like, yeah. My director was like, yeah, I want you, because that was amazing. And I was like, okay, cool. So I did that. And then just from there, man, it was just, I got what I wanted. I got the thing that I didn't get from sports, which was knowing that I was good enough and people recognizing that I was doing good and be like, dude, that was awesome. Like, dab me up. Like, dude, that was so good. Like, holy crap, you were hilarious. And from there, I did it for like 6 years. I've had to stop because, as you know, being a business person, you don't get the opportunity to go do all the fun things you used to do, especially when you're just starting. It's nose to the grindstone. So I miss it, but that also lends really well to me being able to, BS with people when I go to a wedding or get along with people, because I am really good at just getting along with people. Like, hey, what's up, man? Like, what's going on? All that stuff.
No, and I think it lends well to weddings too. I mean, I think I didn't value that enough with sometimes because when you're booking clients and you're talking with them, you're doing all the stuff or the engagement sessions, all that stuff. But then like I would have like my second shooters come and I would be like, hey, okay, I'm going to drop you off with the groom, or whoever, and I'm going to go get, the other people. And a lot of times it's cold, right? Like they don't know anybody. They don't know, and so
Yeah.
you have to have that skill or trait or whatever you want to call it to be able to just like jump in and go, right? And especially as a
Hmm.
photographer where you're kind of leading the show, you have to be able to, command the room or, kind
Yeah.
of like you said, herd cats or whatever. It's tough. And I don't think, I mean, I think there's some photographers that are a little more like hide in the bushes and do that kind of stuff. But I do
Yeah.
think you have to have at least, if you have two of them or whoever there, like one of them's got to be kind of running what's going on. So,
And even if you're not that way, because there's plenty of people who aren't introverted, like you have to at least pretend. Like there's no getting around it. At some point, you're probably going to have to take charge, especially if you're starting out and you're doing weddings that are sub $1,000 or in that range of 1,000, because most of those people probably don't have money to have a planner. So you have to make sure you're getting everything you need, and you have to make sure that the timeline is running the way it is, because you are sort of the captain of the day.
yeah. Last question for me. Where are you, everything's going on. It's crazy. Where do you want to see yourself grow in the next, couple years, obviously working, getting bigger weddings and some better stuff, but what's driving you? What's kind of that goal in the next 3-4 years?
I think my 5 year long term goal is to be self sustained at minimum, and I think I know that I can do that. I just don't know where in those 5 years it'll happen. Um, but that's sort of big goal, like big broad goal. Like I just want to be making money doing this, and if that's weddings, awesome, because that's what I want to do. But if it's not weddings, and I find maybe real estate is suddenly the thing that like that's paying your bills, then hey, that's cool. I'm still going to push weddings and still try to make that happen. But if real estate's going to pay my mortgage or pay my rent, like I'm cool with that. Like I just love taking pictures of stuff, like just like anyone else, really. Anyone who does this for a job, we just love taking pictures of people, and that's what drives us. So some form, some avenue that comes to me, and I just find it's not what I expected, but it is what it is. Like cool, I'll do it. I still want to just take pictures, but yeah, just being self sustained is sort of the big goal right now.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, again for reaching out. It was so great to get to know you, and obviously we're going to continue this discussion on the other side on the Getting Candid
Yep.
podcast. If people want to learn more about you and find your work and Instagram and websites and stuff, where would you have them check out?
Absolutely. So obviously, like you've mentioned, I have the podcast. It's called Getting Candid. If you happen to be someone who is sort of starting their business, or you just kind of want to brush up some skills or hear some new things, it's called Getting Candid. It helps people just navigate the business of that is photography. And you just look up Getting Candid podcast. You'll see my big ugly mug in black and white. It's going to be the same picture actually that Reed uses. And then if you want to follow me, pretty much everything is just at Mason Joel Photo. So that's Instagram, that's Twitter, that's Pinterest, blah. And then my business page on Facebook is called Mason Joel Photography. I'm mostly active on Instagram, I'll be honest, which is probably not good, but that's where I spend most of my time right now, honestly. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much again. If you're like Mason and you're interested in coming on a future episode of the Get to Know Your Wedding Pro podcast, you can go to www.bestmadevideos.com/podcast guest. And that's a nice, easy questionnaire. I didn't make Mason fill that out because he's cool and just DM me, but and that works too. But anyway, feel free to reach out. This has been another wedding vendor interview. Check back next week for another. Well, I totally screwed up that. But check back next week for another wedding vendor interview. Thanks so much.